The Committee on Natural Resources will come to order. We are meeting today to conduct a hearing on H.R. 2314, the Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act of '09, introduced by our colleague from Hawaii, Congressman Neil Abercrombie. This is not the first time we've seen this legislation. It has been passed by the House over and over again, and it pains me that our efforts to establish a process to re-recognize the Native Hawaiian government have thus far been unsuccessful. Native Hawaiians have a long history of a strong and vibrant government and culture. It is a dark chapter in United States history that despite several treaties with the Kingdom of Hawaii, the United States military actively participated in the overthrow of the Native Hawaiian government in 1893. Nevertheless, Native Hawaiians have endured, and they've kept their traditions, their cultural identity, and community alive and well. We have with us this morning several Native Hawaiians and other individuals from Hawaii who have come here to give testimony of great importance. I would also like to welcome our dear colleague from Hawaii, Mazie Hirano, along with my good friend, Mr. Abercrombie, who is a valued member of this Natural Resources Committee. And both have worked so hard for the rights and the recognition of Native Hawaiians. And just cannot say enough for both of these individuals' leadership. In closing, I can assure you that the committee will continue to press forward with the reestablishment of a government-to-government relationship with the Native Hawaiians and reaffirm their indigenous sovereign rights. With that, I recognize the ranking minority member.
Now, come to 2010. How would you like to have, Doc, 1.8 million acres of land in Hawaii today? How would you like to have 200,000 acres in additional land reserved for Hawaiians by congressional act?
I'm always open to negotiation.
Yeah, that's right. So when we come down to it, when you get right down to the nitty-gritties of all of this, this has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money. This has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money. This has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money.
I would also like to welcome our dear colleague from Hawaii, Mazie Hirano, along with my good friend, Mr. Abercrombie, who is a valued member of this Natural Resources Committee. And both have worked so hard for the rights and the recognition of Native Hawaiians.
No one from the Department of Justice and Interior and the White House are here today. We really have no idea how President Obama came to the conclusion that this bill does not cross a constitutional boundary separating recognition of an Indian tribe from recognition of race-based government prohibited under the 14th Amendment. In 2006, the Department of Justice sent letters to the Senate expressing deep concern at this legislation, and I quote, divide people by their race, end quote, and that the Supreme Court and lower federal courts have been invalidating certain state laws providing race-based qualifications for certain state programs. It would have been helpful to have someone from the Justice Department present today to expand on these concerns. I recognize it's a different administration, but it would have been helpful. Their absence only makes me wonder if the White House does not want the Justice Department's prior legal analysis to trump the President's political support for Native American recognition. Along these lines, the Bush administration's Office of Management and Budget issued a strongly worded veto threat saying the bill would, and I quote again, grant broad powers to a racially defined group of Native Hawaiians to include all living descendants of the original Polynesian inhabitants of what is now modern-day Hawaii, end quote. It went on to note that members of this class, and again quote, need not have geographic, political, or cultural connections to Hawaii, much less some discrete Native Hawaiian community, again, end quote. Finally, the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, represented here today at the second panel, objects to recognizing a Native American governing entity. So I will look forward to hearing from testimony from them and from other witnesses. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time.
The gentleman from Hawaii, Mr. Abercrombie.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and Mr. Hastings, members of the committee, I'm grateful that the committee is holding the hearing today on Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act of 2009. By coincidence, it is especially fitting that the hearing is today, as Hawaii is celebrating King Kamehameha Day. It is a public holiday honoring the king who united the Hawaiian Islands and began the monarchy that reigned over the Hawaiian Islands. All over the state there will be hula festivals, floral parades, many local festivities honoring the king. This has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money. Thus, it seems right on this day that we begin the congressional process that all Native Hawaiians be recognized as indigenous people of Hawaii. The irony here, Mr. Chairman, in the light of Mr. Hastings' remarks is that this, in fact, unites everyone in Hawaii, regardless of their racial extraction, to the degree or extent that that is at issue at all, and I believe it is not. The purpose of the bill is to provide a process for the reorganization of the Native Hawaiian governing entity for the purposes of a federally recognized government-to-government relationship, one that exists in numerous instances throughout the nation. On this day, 114 years ago, the monarchy of the Kingdom of Hawaii is overthrown by agents of the United States government. This injustice created wounds and issues that have never been healed or resolved. 14 years ago, the United States government took a step towards reconciling this part of the history by passing a resolution which acknowledged the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii and offered an apology to Native Hawaiians. The Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act would take another step in the reconciliation process by providing Native Hawaiians with the same right of self-governance and self-determination that are afforded to other indigenous people on the continent of North America. Since Hawaii was annexed as a territory, the United States has treated Native Hawaiians in a manner similar to that of American Indians and Alaska Natives. This bill would formalize that relationship and establish parity and federal policies towards all of our indigenous people. This bill would also provide a structured process to address the long-standing issues resulting from the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. This discussion has been avoided for far too long because no one has known how to address or deal with the emotions that arise when these issues are discussed. The bill provides a structured process to negotiate and resolve these issues with federal and state governments and will alleviate a growing mistrust, misunderstanding, anger, and frustration about these matters. Mr. Chairman, I hesitate and will not at this time give a lecture on land tenure issues in Hawaii that extend back to the kingdom. What we're dealing with here, in practical terms, is 1.8 million acres in ceded land, the former Crown lands, over which the state of Hawaii now has trust responsibility, and about 200,000 acres of Hawaiian homelands, which Mr. Kane directly administers on behalf of the people of the state today. And the reason that you get these questions now, in all honesty, Doc and everybody else, is that when the 1.8 million acres were seen as essentially worthless, which is the reason that these particular lands, because you could have said at the time that the entire state was Crown lands because it was a kingdom and it was operated in a feudal manner, so that the chiefs and chiefesses had fiduciary responsibility in terms of their authority for all of the lands. Fiduciary responsibility in terms of their authority for all of the lands. When we when we put Western ideas of property and ownership into the equation, well, then it became somebody's land. They owned it. And so the 1.8 million acres essentially were seen as something that the merchant bankers didn't need, or that didn't belong to the inheritors of the crown lands previously. And this has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money.
I just wanted to ask Sister Haunani, thank you so much for your eloquent statement here. In your current capacity and the times that you've had, I'm sure, opportunities to associate and meet with several or many members of the Native American tribes and organizations. I know this is one issue that has also been raised about will this cause any problems in terms of the recognition process to the Native Hawaiians as it is with our Native American Indians from Alaska as well as the continental U.S. Has there been any indication in opposition from any of the tribes in the U.S. in terms of what the Native Hawaiians are trying to achieve here?
Absolutely not. The National Congress of American Indians has stood firmly in support of passage of federal recognition for Native Hawaiians, as has the Alaska Federation of Natives, who one of their representatives is here this morning or this afternoon in the absence of their president. In addition to the Native groups, there have been many other national groups who have been supportive of our effort because they understand about justice, indigenous rights, etc. At home, and we talk about Kuhio Kalanianaole and his role as a delegate. In addition to his policy making here, he was very instrumental in forming and beginning community activism at home with Native Hawaiians because of what he saw happening with Hawaiian people over the years and decimation of our community. The president of that Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, which is the established community civic group of in the interest of Hawaiian movement forward, established by Kuhio, is here, Lemomi Khan, who's sitting in the audience. So there's been vast and diverse and varied support, and certainly the Native leadership of this country is supportive of this recognition bill for Hawaiians.
So the major factions, indigenous peoples of our country,
absolutely,
American Indians and the Native Alaskans,
they stand with us.
Fully support this.
They stand with us and they say, hurry up.
This has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with assets, land, and money.
Gentlelady from Guam is recognized.
I stand in solidarity with our colleagues from Hawaii in supporting H.R. 2314 and am a co-sponsor. And I also join you, Mr. Chairman, in extending a warm aloha and welcome to our colleague from the 2nd District, Ms. Serrano, and to all those who are here this morning for this important hearing. We know today's hearing marks continued work on this legislation since the House first passed it by voice vote as H.R. 4904 in the 106th Congress. Trustees and representatives